Hey everybody, I think most Packer fans are pretty frustrated with the Packers season thus far. I don't think many of us predicted that they would be 3-4 at this point in the season, and it's likely the Packers could be 3-5 after their tussle with the Bills on Sunday night. The Bills, after all, are one of the best teams in the NFL right now, and the Packers simply are not playing up to par. I don't think it takes a brain surgeon to see that the Packers' offense simply is not clicking right now, and that is one of the main reasons the Packers are losing football games. Yeah, you could say that the line is being shuffled around and hasn't been very good, but I think one of the other major reasons is because the wide receivers are simply not being productive. I don't think I'm going to get a lot of argument there, especially from our man Big Nate. The truth is, I think the Packers are relying on too many new players who are inexperienced in this offense to really click with Rodgers. I think it does take a pretty smart wide receiver to get on the same page with Rodgers, and we know what type of stickler he is for details and getting things right. He really wants his receivers to think like he thinks. Fair or not for the wide receivers, this is the reality of the Green Bay Packers under Aaron Rodgers. So how did we get here? Well, I think the Packers secretly assumed that they would be able to re-sign Davante Adams. I think they thought they could pay him enough money to keep him in Green Bay with Rodgers and make another Super Bowl run. Well, when you're a multi-millionaire athlete already, maybe money isn't the most important thing. Maybe you'll take a little less money to play in a location that you desperately always wanted to play and to be closer to your family. Sometimes those things matter more than money to people. If what I am saying here is true, then I think that was Packers' blunder number one. But it doesn't tell the whole story. So what are the other mistakes that the Packers made that led us to this point in time? Well, I think you need to look at the draft. And I think specifically we want to look at the draft that has been led by General Manager Brian Gutekunst. Okay, so the year 2018, that was the first year that Gutekunst led the draft for the Packers. At the time, we all think he did an excellent job because he was able to get an extra first-round pick for the next year, and he chose Jaire Alexander, who has been an excellent player for the Packers. But look at some of these other picks. Josh Jackson. Is he even playing anymore? Oren Burks. He was basically a special teams player for us. Jamon Moore, wide receiver. All right, so we have a wide receiver. Well, where the hell is he? Terrible pick. He didn't pan out. So go on and on. Cole Madison, J.K. Scott, a punter he took before more wide receivers. MVS, well, we know he's been pretty good, and actually he's missed this year, but that was a pretty decent pick. And you got Equanimeous St. Brown, who's now with the Bears. But the rest of these players, pretty bad. So if you look at this, only one player remains from that 2018 draft class. Let's go to the year 2019. On the surface, looks pretty good. Rashawn Gary has turned out to be an excellent player. Savage is a starter. Picked in the first round. I think we expected more of him. And Elton Jenkins has been excellent. But the rest of this class, pretty poor. No wide receivers. So no wide receivers of this draft class. All right, on to the year 2020. The big controversial pick of Jordan Love in the first round. Well, we'll see how that pans out. A.J. Dillon, yeah, we think he's a good player, and that was a decent pick in the second round. But it could be argued that maybe there were receivers at that time we could have picked. DeGuara, untapped potential. Hasn't shown a ton yet, but I can hold off on him judging. So, in the rest of the draft, so-so. Runyon has been a good player. Hansen has filled in. Vernon Scott, Garvin. But, once again, no wide receivers. Go to last year's draft. So, we got Eric Stokes. It's going to be a good player. Josh Myers, a good player. Amari Rodgers, we'll see how he turns out. Royce Newman, we're all sick of him. and Gene Charles, Cole Van Lanen, Isaiah McDovey, Kylan Hill. Kylan Hill could be a good one. But once again, for the third year in a row, no wide receivers chosen. And now we get to this year, where eventually we picked some wide receivers. We got Quay, Devontae, Christian Watson. We'll see how he turns out. We still have hope for him. Sean Ryan, who's been a disappointment. Romeo Doubs, who's been better than expected. He has a lot to improve, but he has some good potential. So most of these other players are still on the team, and we're just going to have to wait to see how they all pan out over time. So it's pretty obvious here. With the exception of last year and drafting Amari Rodgers in the third round, we've gone 3 years essentially drafting no wide receivers. Now, if these wide receivers were chosen in 2019 and 2020, they should just be starting to blossom now in the Packers offense. But there weren't any. And they didn't go so far as to really sign any free agents to help fill the cupboards there at the wide receiver position. So that is where I think the Packers blundered big time, not constantly restocking the wide receiver position. This is a premium position in today's NFL. If the NFL is indeed a passing league, the number one thing you need is a great quarterback, and secondly, you need good weapons to throw to. Now, I'm all about the battle in the trenches, and I think that's very important too. And there's a lot to be said about the Packers' offensive line being terrible this year, and that's certainly a contributing factor to what we've seen so far. But I think a lack of weapons is another major cause for the Packers' downfall, and it's pretty obvious. Just look at the draft. Gutenkunst, you got to do better than that. And if you're not going to draft players, let's get them through free agents or trades. We cannot ignore this anymore. Time is running out, specifically on Aaron Rodgers. If we want to utilize his supreme talents to get to a Super Bowl and get a championship, we need to act fast. Well, that's what I think. What do you all think? Please make sure you comment and subscribe. Engage. Let's talk about this stuff. Anyway, I still have hope the Packers will be good for this year. We just need to turn it around. Let's get going now. Thanks, everyone.